Sorry. Sorry about that. Anyway, well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for coming today. This is it's obviously going to be a very important press conference because the topic is very important for Alaskans. As we know, Alaska has one of the highest sexual assault rates in the country. It's not something any of us are proud of. And over the years, there have been a number of initiatives to try and work on this. And so the work we're doing in my administration, as well as what they're starting here in the Anchorage administration, and Mayor Brownson will talk about that here in just a moment, is really crucial. And as a former teacher who's had to deal with, unfortunately, children that have been impacted by sexual abuse, sexual assault, as a father of 3 daughters, who wants to make sure that this is the safest state in the country for all Alaskans, all of our women, all of our children, all of our men. We want to keep building on what we're trying to accomplish, and that is to reduce this scourge, quite frankly, on Alaska to the extent we possibly can. We've got a number of victim advocates that are here today in support of what we're doing. We've got the municipality of Anchorage, and I've got members of my team here as well. So what we're really talking about are two big issues that we are working hard on. One is the DNA collection. DNA collection from those arrested, those convicted. Because oftentimes, an individual that's involved in a sexual assault, it's not the first time, and it may not be the last time. We want it to be the last time. We don't want it to happen at all, but we certainly want it to be the last time. And so we're tackling a 25-year-old problem that dates back a quarter of a century. And as of now, we've gotten the DNA from about 75% of those that are required by law for us to actually collect that DNA. And we're working diligently on getting the remaining 25% collected. We hope to accomplish that as soon and it's we're working for that. So we from sexual for some of what we're
step forward in helping law enforcement agencies take violent offenders and sexual predators off our streets. This is a policy my administration wholeheartedly stands behind and supports. My administration, including Chief McCoy, are dedicated and committed to making Anchorage a safe place to live, work, and play. This plan will not only work to protect our city, but will increase safety across the state. The municipality of Anchorage is ready to take action to work with the Dunleavy administration to address these challenges. Furthermore, the announcement of sexual assault kit tracking software is commendable and will allow for peace of mind for our survivors and their families here in Alaska. It is my hope that ramping up the collection of DNA and the tracking and testing of sexual assault kits will bring hope to victims and survivors across the municipality of Anchorage, as well as our great state. I want to commend Governor Dunleavy and his administration for making this a top priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to recognize another elected official here who has been a tireless advocate for making sure that the sexual assault kits and other approaches to making our state safer are put in place, and that's Representative Garantar from Anchorage. And so I do want to recognize your efforts. Oh, you're over there. Your efforts, and I want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
And so we're going to go next to our Deputy Attorney John Skidmore, who's going to lay some detail into the 30,000 foot that I just laid out earlier. We'll then go to Commissioner Cockrell after Deputy Attorney General Skidmore. And then we'll go to Commissioner Dahlstrom. Chief McCoy will go to him with Anchorage. And then we will begin the question and answer session, and we'll close the press conference. So with that, Deputy Attorney General John Skidmore, if you want to come up and add some meat to what we were talking about, that would be great.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The announcement that the administration is making today really fits hand in glove with the other efforts that the administration's been making to do a better job at servicing victims in the criminal justice system when they're victims of sexual assault. Adding the new prosecutors is part of that. We want to get the kits processed timely, we want to get back to victims timely, and we want to collect this other DNA to help us solve those crimes. The DNA that we're talking about collecting is authorized by Alaska Statute 4441035. It's a statute that's actually been on the books for the past 25 years. However, during those last 25 years, it's a statute that's been amended 8 different times. So that's made some challenges in terms of trying to figure out what's supposed to be collected when. 25 years ago, it started by saying only people convicted of a felony crime against a person had to submit DNA. A felony crime against a person in Alaska is under Alaska Statute 1141, that chapter. That's where you're going to have your homicides, your assaults, your robberies, those sorts of things. But over the 25 years, as it was amended 8 times, it grew to include all crimes against a person, whether felony or misdemeanors. It grew to include all felonies. It grew to include felonies in Title 11, in Title 26.05, which is the Military Justice Code, and 2835, which are the felony driving offenses. It grew not only to say those people that were convicted, but also those people that were arrested. In addition to that particular statute, there's also another statute on the books that allows us to enforce this. It's an Alaska statute that says when an individual who has been convicted of one of those crimes that I just mentioned refuses to provide the DNA, they can be charged with a new Class C felony for refusing to provide that DNA. That's one of the enforcement mechanisms that's going to allow us to go back and collect what is referred to as that owed DNA. And we know that collecting this DNA in combination with processing the SART kits faster will aid us. I can tell you 17 years ago, I actually prosecuted a case that was a burglary case that was solved by what we refer to as a CODIS hit. CODIS is the national system. It's called the Combined DNA Index System. And when you take DNA left behind at the crime scene, collected in that investigation, you can compare it to this database of known DNA. It helps us solve crimes where we didn't otherwise have leads for law enforcement to pursue. 17 years ago, I was able to successfully prosecute a burglary case with a CODIS hit. We know more recently, CODIS hits have been successful in cases like the Paris Chino case, which was a cold sexual assault case down on the Kenai Peninsula that was tried within the last year. These are but 2 examples of how CODIS has aided us over the years and why this effort we announced today is so important. I'd like to turn it over now to Commissioner Cockrell to talk a little bit more about the efforts that will be made to collect that DNA as well as to speed up the processing of the SART kits. Commissioner?
Thank you, John. Good morning. As you've heard from the Governor and Deputy Attorney General John Skidmore, the issue has been a top priority not only for the Department of Public Safety, but for all our partners both here at the state level and also at the local level. My team has aggressively been working this problem by identifying individuals that owe DNA as well as the means to collect that owed DNA. This is not unique to Alaska. Many states have implemented similar DNA collections on arrest or DNA collection after conviction statutes and have run into the same issues we currently are. Today, Alaska is in a much better place, and our partners at the local law enforcement level, as well as the Department of Corrections, are capturing nearly every individual that is being arrested that must submit DNA as part of our laws. In addition, we are working on technical solutions for various criminal justice databases managed by the Department of Public Safety, Department of Corrections, and the State Crime Lab to ensure technology can communicate with each other about the status of new DNA collections to ensure that each collection is processed and reviewed. Now we have identified solutions to ensure no more DNA is missed. We can identify processes to collect DNA that is lawfully owed that was missed at some point during the criminal justice process. We know that there is no easy solution or one-size-fits-all answer in closing this gap. DPS, or Department of Public Safety, has been working with the chiefs of police from across the state, and they are committed to partnering with us to collect this DNA to further safeguard their communities. For those that owe DNA under Alaska law that we are unable to contact through the Department of Corrections, we will be working with local and state law enforcement agencies to locate these individuals and collect their DNA. Our number one priority will be for violent offenders and sex offenders. Government has an obligation to follow the law, and regardless of the many reasons that these DNA collections were missed, we are focused on making our state a safer place to live. In the coming months, the Department of Public Safety will have a new portal allowing a survivor to know the status of their kit from the medical facility where the kit was processed through the shipping and processing here at the Alaska State Crime Lab. Soon we'll have a tool in place for survivors of sexual assault to be able to track their sexual assault kits for survivors to do today. In our current process, investigating the case, and then ask for status updates on their kit and the progress of the investigation. This does require phone calls, emails to track down the status of the kit, and time that our investigators are spending away from actually investigating the offense. This can be a traumatic task for the survivor, and the recent SOCI report identified a tracking portal as a trauma-informed tool that can help a survivor through this process. In addition to being a new tool for survivors, the portal will also provide greater insight into the status of sexual assault kits through Alaska at a high level. At a policy level, this should prevent any roadblocks from occurring and allow smooth submittals to the State Crime Lab. I know this is a huge undertaking, and I want to personally thank the dedicated staff at the Crime Lab for pursuing this project through to completion. Thank you very much for your time, and Commissioner Dahlstrom.
Thank you, Commissioner. Both Commissioner Cockrell and Deputy AG Skidmore have provided the general outline of our plan today. And what I'd like to do is share with you how Corrections participates in this plan. Over the years, DOC has collected tens of thousands of DNA samples, and now with the initiative, DNA will broaden our collection efforts statewide. Our plan is really quite specific. We are going to collect the DNA and ensure that the samples get to the State Crime Lab for analysis. So we will do this in three ways. First, we'll work with DPS and law on collecting DNA from any currently incarcerated offenders who still owe DNA. Second, our probation and parole officers will assist with the collection of any owed DNA by an offender who is still on supervision. And third, when booking an offender into a facility on a charge that falls under the guiding statute, a DNA sample will be collected. All samples will be logged into the offender management database and tracked on their way to the crime lab. The governor has asked us all to double down on our efforts, and DOC has the processes in place, and we will be doing this. So I'd like to introduce another partner in our effort here today, and that's Chief Ken McCoy from the Anchorage Police Department.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. I'm Chief McCoy of the Anchorage Police Department. I want to thank Governor Dunleavy for taking this bold action to help hold offenders accountable. Combating violent crime is a priority for APD. We have dedicated, specialized units investigating homicides, sexual assaults, and crimes against children. I served for many years as a sexual assault investigator, and I know firsthand the damage caused by these horrific crimes. DNA collection is a critical step in solving these cases and bringing closure to the survivors and their families. I'm pleased that our officers have already begun collecting DNA from violent offenders at the time of arrest, something we proactively started a year ago. We are also committed to working closely with our law enforcement partners to collect the remaining owed DNA samples from arrestees and convicted offenders. I'm confident that our combined efforts will make our communities safer. Thank you. Governor.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Commissioners. And so before we go to questions, Corey, if it's okay, I'd ask that if any of the victims' advocates or representatives would like to say a few words, and Representative Tarr, if you want to say a few words. It's okay.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so much, Governor. I guess I'll just say that we had identified these as issues that were preventing us from doing as good a job as we can in addressing sexual assault in our state. So it's very encouraging. Thank you to all of our law enforcement professionals who are standing behind this effort, to our commissioners who have joined this effort. I have a vision. I want to wake up one day in Alaska where we don't lead the nation in the rates of domestic violence and sexual assault. I think this is a step that's going to get us there. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Blaze Bell. I am a survivor, and I work closely now with Victims for Justice and STAR. And Detective McCoy, Chief McCoy now, was actually on my case originally. And this is really a full circle moment for me as a survivor, and I'm incredibly grateful that you are all coming together to help other sexual assault survivors. So thank you.
I want to thank the governor and all of the, the commissioners and law enforcement partners that are making this happen. This has been an identified gap in service provision and understanding the wealth and breadth of offenses across the state. So we're really, really excited about this announcement today and all of the hard work that's already started. Thank you.
Identify yourself? No. If you want to identify yourself.
And I'm Keely Olson, the Executive Director of STAR. Thank you very much.
I'm Tori Shanklin. I'm the Executive Director of Victims for Justice, and I just want to recognize the fact that these are really trauma-informed practices, with everything from the tracking of the sexual assault kits to how people are going to get this completion in full circle. And so I just want to acknowledge that and thank everyone for this step.
Thank you. Thanks, folks. And Corey, if you want to open up for questions, and any questions for any of the folks standing up here, they can come up to the podium and answer the questions.
So, Governor, you said 75% of samples were collected, meaning 25% weren't. So 1 in 4 samples that should have been collected under state law were not collected. What is that number? How many samples were missing?
We'll let John answer the question on the numbers.
There was a report that was issued today. The number was a little over 21,000. There are about 1,500 that are since deceased, and so the number of DNA samples that we're going to be pursuing now that are owed is a little over 20,000.
Okay, and if I could follow up, when did you arrive at that number, and why did the state not provide it when it was the subject of a public records request we made 5 months ago?
So the report goes into detailing the fact that the collection of the numbers is actually tracked in multiple different systems, and we had to do searches in each system and then try and reconcile the reports that came out of each system to make sure that we had a clear understanding of what those numbers were. So we didn't have those numbers when the requests were first coming in. It took us, I think we were still editing the numbers and going back and clarifying things as late as just last week.
Someone is apprehended, their DNA is collected, and then they become acquitted later on, their DNA is stayed system?
That's a great question. The statute that authorizes us to collect DNA says that we can collect when the person is arrested, and then if they are not convicted of the crime that authorized the collection, they can request their DNA to be removed from the system. That's already covered in the statute.
Go back for a last round of questions. Will the state commit to releasing the names of the people whose DNA was missed, given that anyone who has been the victim of a violent crime, especially a serial offender, might have been victimized by someone who could have been caught had this law been followed?
The release of the names is not something that's authorized by law. The DNA database is actually excluded from the Public Records Act. What we can release is summaries, numbers, but we can't release information that's identifying the exact person. However, I can tell you that we are generating a list for law enforcement to work from so that we can go and collect it from those people. But the names themselves are not something that's subject to public record.
Well, I think that could be a matter of litigation, right? But are you anticipating a class action lawsuit given all the potential victims here?
No.
Just curious about how we'll resolve any confusion regarding race DNA collected. For instance, DUIs were mentioned. Is that really target here in a sense like that, getting DNA for a DUI offender versus other incidents of crimes?
Can you, I apologize, can you repeat that, please?
Sure, yeah. Just to sort out whether there are any systems in place to ensure that we don't focus more on collecting DNA for an offense like a DUI. Is that the target here versus maybe a violent crime or a crime of sexual abuse?
There's certainly going to be violent crimes, but we'll let Deputy Attorney General Skidmore answer that.
You're correct in that the law authorizes us to collect from all of those, including DUIs, but it would be foolish for us to say we were going to go after offenses where we didn't think there was as much of a connection. So the administration is prioritizing who we'll go after first, and the areas that we're going to start with are those that were convicted of a felony crime against a person. We talked about this large number that was 20,000. There are less than 600 of a felony crime against a person for which there is DNA owed. That's where we're going to start our efforts, and then we'll expand from there as we set priorities about who do we think are the most significant people for us to ensure we have the collection from.
Victims portal?
The victims portal, one of the questions was about tracking what was going on. And while we're not going to release names of individuals that we still need to collect on, we are trying to make sure that the processing of all the things we announced today are made available to the people that need to know that. So, for example, there's a victims portal for the SART kits, as they get processed, for victims to be able to log in and track what's going on with their SART kits. So we are trying to make sure that the information that's appropriate is available to the people that need and care about it most, the victims, but the names of offenders is not something that's a matter of public record.
So thanks everybody, and thanks for the folks that have been advocates for victims and also ending this scourge on Alaska. Really what I wanted to dedicate the last couple of minutes to is the actual perpetrators and potential perpetrators. The science and technology is advancing rapidly, and I would strongly say to those that would even contemplate committing crimes of this nature on fellow Alaskans that the days of getting away with it are over, that as we advance in our technology and our tools, and that as this information is organized in a manner that's going to be conducive to actually tracking down, arresting, and convicting, justice is going to be much swifter from this point forward. And so, again, this is one step and one step only. We're going to be looking at our laws. We're going to be looking at sex trafficking. We're going to be looking at abuse of children. This is a huge undertaking, but this isn't something that's just occurred under my watch. This has been going on in Alaska for a very, very long time, unfortunately. But again, this is just one step of a series of steps that we've taken. We'll continue to take, and as was mentioned by some of the folks that came up and spoke earlier, this goal is for Alaska to no longer be known as one of the top states for sexual assault. That the work that we do including the work that we're talking about today, makes a huge difference going forward. We make this a safer place for Alaskans today, for our kids, and for our grandkids. So with that, I want to thank